Last time you were here, Lily, we were talking about... You were actually writing this at the time, going through that process, which, you know, was quite tricky, I'm sure. Now it's out and there's been all the reaction. Any regrets?
No, never any regrets.
And what have you made of the reaction so far?
I think, like, to be expected, really, you know? I mean, the things that I've written about, which have not really been written about in a salacious manner, have obviously been presented in a salacious manner. But that's, you know, I'm used to that.
I've read a lot of autobiographies, and I have to say, I could not put it down. It's the most honest autobiography I've ever read, so all credit to you for that. And I love the style, because it is very matter-of-fact, unapologetic in many ways, and it makes me... I've never met you, but obviously I've read about you. I've read about you a lot, in obviously headlines, but it makes me, I feel, understand you so much better.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Was that the aim?
I think so. I mean, I think, you know, I kind of... I don't want to complain, you know, I've had a really, really great time, and I've, you know, achieved so much and had, you know, really, really brilliant experiences, but I do feel like I've been misrepresented in lots of ways. And, you know, you can either let that sit there and exist and that become the truth or the reality or people's perception, or you can, you know, give my own version of events, which is what I've done, and I'm really happy to hear that that's what you've got from it.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't put it down my whole weekend. I've been on the loo, I've been cooking, I've been doing everything in the book.
Washing hands as well.
Because first of all, me and my family are huge fans of your music, and it sounds like your music when you're talking to us through the book. It's very much like your songs, and I love right at the beginning how you talk about this is the way that I remembered it, and so that's why I've been a bit annoyed with the press. Oh, was it this and was it exactly that? Because I think that is growing up, isn't it? We all have our own lens that we've looked
It's your truth, isn't it? How you remember a scenario, a situation is not necessarily how somebody else remembers it or would write about it.
Oh yeah, no, exactly, and I do write that in the introduction. You know, I say this is my version of events. That does not mean that it is fact.
Yeah.
Especially where, you know, my parents are concerned or other people are concerned. Other people will always have their own version of events.
You broke my heart many times through this book. I literally wanted to get in and give you a big hug, because when you talk about being invisible, I mean, so many of the other things that we've seen about you since, you can understand, can't you?
You had a bit, lighter, you had a bit of a chaotic childhood. And it's interesting because obviously all the stuff that has made headlines from the book, to me, is the least interesting.
Yes,
me too. And for me, you know, so for a couple of times, for example, when you didn't get picked up from school, and that, as we're all mums, that is the thing that just goes, ooh. When did your mum first read the book, and how did it affect your relationship? Because it's quite honest.
She read it sorry. She read it, but well, we were having conversations with other people that had read the book, and she hadn't read it yet, but she had to sort of pretend that she had read it, and somebody was going, you know, it must be really difficult, Alison, for you to have read this, and she's like, not knowing what was coming at all. But, you know, she's fine with it, and, you know, she's a grown-up, my mum, obviously, as am I, and, you know, she understands that there was a need for me to get this out there. And, you know, I don't think that it's ever presented in a way like, you know, oh, I'm so hard done by, I hate my mum.
No.
It's really not that at all.
It's
just like, this is how I remember things. And, you know, and I think she's been a bit upset. You know, she's like, I'm really sorry that you felt like that and didn't realise that I felt like that.
And I think that's a really good point. I often say to my husband, what are the things that our children are going to come and say to us? You've got no idea, but that destroyed me. Because we're getting on, aren't we? And we don't know. You've said that you wanted to write this book so that your children would be able to read your version of events. What does that feel like? Because when I was reading it, I was imagining that, and your children reading. Well, do you still feel that way?
No, I definitely feel that way. And I think that, you know, it's a lot of the decisions that I made when my children were really, really small will have a lasting effect on them. And if I don't tell them the truth, then they will internalise those feelings of neglect or whatever it was, you know. And I'd rather that they know that it was Mummy's fault rather than think it's my fault, you know. So that's
you obviously write a lot about the music industry, being a young woman in the music industry. You Mel, obviously can relate to that and saying, you know, there's this dilemma of they want you to be kind of sexy and sassy, and yet they were saying, oh, Lily, you know, you're lovely because you're kind of ordinary, you're like the girl next door, which you say in some ways was a compliment, but then you thought, well, why don't they think I'm sassy and sexy?
Exactly.
And did you feel that, Mel, that you can relate to that? That there were people always trying to make you
What do you
sexy?
mean you never did
No,
sex?
my fault was that.
Wasn't that
That was me.
Was that your
That was
sexy
my
face?
That's about as sexy as I got. That was it.
Did you do that
I left it to the other
purposely
girls.
hide to not be sexy when they saying do sexy because you couldn't?
Yeah, no, I couldn't.
But also,
I
there's
didn't
5
have
of
a
you,
look.
which kind of you all had
They can do the
different
sexy, yeah.
things going on, didn't you?
But
Whereas
I'm
you're
really
on your
proud
own.
of you for doing this. I think that's really important that you get your side of the story out and you're so honest. That's really brave.
Oh, thank you.
Really brave.
When it comes to your one bit that really, because to about your own children, obviously you've got Ethel and Marnie who are quite young, and there's a really honest bit in the book where you go on tour and you say, I shouldn't have left the nest, I had to leave the nest, I wanted to leave the nest, I wish I hadn't left the nest. And that for me is like the whole contradiction of being a working mum.
Yeah, for sure.
But how do you balance it now?
Well, I mean, actually, divorce has really helped because me and my ex-husband, we share custody, you know, 50-50. So we do a week on, a week off. So if I do have to leave the nest, so to speak now, they don't really notice me going that much because I do it while it's on his week. And if it has to go over a little bit, then they only notice me being gone for sort of 3 or 4 days rather than for 2 weeks. So it's just scheduling and balance. But, you know, the music industry isn't very good at being very sympathetic with that. So I think that was the struggle, you know, in the last tour, was that I felt bad for saying, like, I need to get back to my kids, you know, because they'd be like, well, that's going to cost us too much money to get you back and keep flying you all over the... But I think it's, you know, it's just about being firm and you know, not just sort of caving in.
Listen, you said Lily Allen, My Thoughts Exactly is out now. It's an absolutely fascinating read, and as Jane said, really honest, and it's great that you've come to talk to us about it.